Hi everyone, welcome back to No More Future, and yeah, let's just get back to the game, you know? Even if there weren't. Wait a minute, I'm like, my throat is a little bit messy. I'm a little bit sick right now. I keep mentioning that from some of my videos. But yeah, there are days where I'm just not me, you know? 100% or 90%. Even if there weren't. You're pretty sure no government would have ever allowed them to become more powerful than them to begin with. That is a good thing, you know, that's a good question. Assuming Jasper doesn't tell you that governments never existed or some other dystopian nonsense along those lines. There were many such laws in the past, that is true. However, like all laws, they mattered only to the extent that they were enforced. And we gave the authorities plenty of reasons not to enforce them. You mean they were on your payroll? Correct. The people voted politicians into office to do their interests, and we paid them to do ours instead. To a certain extent, we still do. Don't get me wrong, there were some attempts at getting us out of the picture. In 2077, some congressmen brought forth a bill that included a strict $1 trillion roof on the share capital of every holding operating in the country. It would have effectively killed our business in the country, seeing as though our shares at the time were about 300 times that. 300 times? You really ought to stop sounding so surprised when you say stuff like that. $300 trillion. When I think about $300 trillion, damn, you know, that's like X amount of countries that are equivalent. Even if you combine some of the GDP of certain countries that are booming in the economy right now, $300 trillion, I don't think it would even make it that high. I assume you're gonna say that the draft was never made into law? That it didn't. It failed to make it past the Senate, where 56% of the members voted against it. You had that many people on your side? That's crazy. Of course not. That would have been unmanageable, even by our standards. We had 97% of the Senate on our side, and about the same number of people in the House as well. Pandora never leaves anything up to chance. We just made that fact a little less obvious this way. Well, so much for the democratic process still being anything like what you were taught in school. This is beginning to sound more and more like one of those dystopian books you studied in English class by the minute. Give me a break. Next you'll tell me you own the media too. Drake raised an eyebrow at your exclamation, wondering if you're serious about that. Oh, for the love of... Did Dr. Shelley never teach you to think before saying such foolishness out loud? First off, rude. And secondly, why wouldn't I jump to the conclusion that... No, wait a minute. Now that I think about it, it doesn't add up. If Pandora owns all the media, there's no way people would have such a jagged outlook on me even existing. There'd be positive coverage of Pandora and their synthetics up the wazoo. And yet, that's hardly the case. Half the world is still against you for reasons you can only half understand. It doesn't sound like something they'd allow given all the power they supposedly possess if they could avoid it. Alright, fair. I guess it wouldn't make sense if you were the ones to manage the news. I suppose this means someone else does? And here I thought I need to explain this to you as well. Lucky me. But yes, it is as you said. We may be in charge of more things than I can count, but the news is one of the few we don't. As annoying as it is to admit, Mr. Algon and Miss Lighting aren't the only hard-headed people in the world. Another company way back when, Prometheus, also refused to work with us in any capacity. They saw what we were doing and decided they wanted a taste of the pie as well. They began amassing power in the media sector, pulling together news stations, internet companies, social networks, and all under their banner. So they became you, only a lot smaller? An interesting way to put it, but yes, it is as you say. Their duties consist summarily in keeping their customers alert as to what's going on all over the world, as well as provide them the means to react, discuss, and even influence these events sometimes. To that end, they curate the experience of all their customers in order to ensure maximum engagement, in order to give everybody exactly what they want. I'm not sure I follow. What does that have to do with the way people still look at me? Why is everyone still convinced that I'm gonna turn out to be the next Kronos? Jasper's eyes rolled to the ceiling at her comment, evidently unamused. Well, you being the best candidate for the role certainly doesn't help. Yeah, right. And the objective answer is a little snarky coming from you, but the Drake's practically asking for it at this point. The least he could do after bombarding you with all this unwanted information is to answer your question, especially considering it's not even that far off from the current topic either. You honestly don't get it. Their role isn't to just report the truth, it's to sell it to different people, all of which are looking for a unique spin on it. Regarding synthetic technology, for example, they sell pro-synthetic media to those who are pro-synthetic and peddle the rest to those who aren't. They don't force anyone to watch it, mind you, much like how they don't force anyone to watch the news to begin with. But much the same as they do with us, their customers simply don't care. Damn, this is hitting a little bit too real for, in reality speaking. They naturally gravitate towards content they agree with and shy away from everything else. That's why so many people are convinced you'll turn up the same as Kronos, because they never needed any convincing in the first place, only reinforcing. That's messed up. How am I supposed to change these people's minds in these conditions? See, that's the interesting part. You can't, and you won't. Whether the media's machine ever starts spinning in your favor relies entirely on whether they can profit from it or not. It has nothing to do with anything either you or us can or will do. Well, that's just great. Just like real life, and you honestly can't do anything about it. Hardly. Like I said, Prometheus is its own company. They need our infrastructure to operate as much as we need them to not go overboard with their reporting. This means they won't go to war with us by deliberately sicking the populace against us, but it also means we can't force them to spread alternative facts one way or another. You mean propaganda? Isn't that what you're asking me for? The Drake's words sting you more than you thought they would. You truly hadn't realized just what you were asking for until he stated it out loud. Of course, you never wanted to use propaganda to convince everyone that you're still alive. No sane person ever would. Of course, you never... Oh, sorry, I read that twice. My bad. But the fact that this conversation led you to believe that might even be possible, even if it isn't, is extremely concerning. Dear Diary, today I learned the whole world is owned by two massive mega corporations. Sounds like a great opener, don't you think? Jasper scoffs at your joke, evidently unamused with your cynicism. I don't see why you sound so glum when you're saying that. It's truly nowhere near as bad as you think it is. Nowhere near as? Are you kidding me? You just confessed that the free market is a myth. That our government is a farce, that me and everybody else out there has been living a lie their entire life. Do you have any idea how messed up everything you just said truly sounds? I do. And the dragon's response is so curt that to the point it's almost like a sucker punch to the gut. The way I see it, the world's working just as intended. Nobody's unemployed against their will. Nobody's waging wars over resources or other petty reasons. Nobody has any reason to go out into the streets and protest. Oh damn, alright. I've always wondered. I guess it depends on what a world government is or would be. Who are the people that would be in charge on that government? I'm not trying to be a political debaters here or anything. It's just a thought, a food for thought, right? If the world united against something, someone has to lead. Or a group of people have to lead. What would entail to that on the modern era of humanity? I don't know. No wars? Who knows? Wars spark because of interest at the top and culture at the bottom. Other than that, it's iffy. Everybody's perfectly content with the way things are, so content in fact that they don't even bother trying to learn more about how this all became possible to begin with. Not even you. The dragon's ruthless comments force you to retreat into yourself once again, much like BradBurry's did just yesterday. It almost feels like being accused of committing a heinous crime, a crime you didn't even know you had committed until just now. And judging by the regret you're feeling, you're probably guilty of it too. You can make as many comments on the system as you wish. The fact of the matter is that it works. Alright, welcome back. Just had a quick cut because family dog Sandra going ham on my neighbor. You can make as many comments on the system as you wish. The fact of the matter is that it works, and that's all I'm concerned with. We provide food for the starving, electricity for the needy, medical care for the ill, and so much more. Wow. Pandora. Let's go. Thanks to us, nobody in the world is ever faced with a problem they cannot solve, a need they cannot fulfill. And though we ask for compensation for our services in both labor and currency, our prices are fair and our Had to burp. Had to fight that one out. Our prices are fair and our quality excellent. Nobody's ever complained. Nobody's ever noticed. Because there are no faults to complain about and no problems to notice. This is what we do. This is what people want. Deal with it. Silence. The sound of the wind outside the windows is all you can hear. That and your own thoughts plaguing your mind like a disease spurred on by the dragon's words. But soon enough, yet another voice adds itself to the endless chorus. You know, he has a point. The familiar voice comes from a nearby table, one you haven't looked at in quite a while. It's low and serious, and it calls up your spine much the same as a serpent slithers amidst the grass. I know it was gonna be Mr. FBI agent BradBurry. When you turn to look in its direction, you find a smirking Saint Bernard calmly sitting at a table, like a normal customer awaiting to be served, even though it's completely barren. His gaze is transfixed upon the two of you, almost as if delighting in the surprise and confusion that his sudden arrival has caused. What are you doing here? And when did he even get here, for that matter? You definitely didn't hear him walk in, that's for sure. How long has he been here observing the two of you for, exactly? Now, that's not how one's meant to greet others when in public, Isaac. It's impolite. Isn't that right, Mr. Morgan? The canine shifts his gaze to the Drake sitting opposite you as if gauging his reaction. Though Jasper clearly is annoyed at your blunt reaction as well, the main brunt of his aggression appears to be directed exclusively towards the unexpected guest, much to your relief. The android has a point. BradBurry, your presence here is rather unexpected. So tell us what you're doing here before my mood begins to sour. BradBurry dodges Jasper's cold stare and threatening words with the finesse of a cheetah. My apologies. I had no idea you were having a great time from over here. I honestly thought you were hitting it off quite nicely. But to answer your question, I just so happened to stumble upon this restaurant while on my late morning jog and decided to stop here for lunch. Completely on a whim, of course. Typical BS from the Popo. Bull S, BS. You immediately think, unamused with the canine's futile attempt at deception, judging from the look on Jasper's eyes, he's having very similar thoughts himself. Right, so you just happened to stumble onto me and the android on the one occasion we decided to have lunch together? That is the gist of what I'm saying, yes? And you came to the one restaurant that's supposed to be closed to the general public right now. The canine lifts an eyebrow tiredly and you are unsure whether that's because he doesn't have an answer or because he thinks the question's pointless in the first place. How did you even get here? I took the elevator same as you did. You didn't think I'd take the stairs, did you? No offense, but we are more than 20 stories up and my physique isn't quite the same as what it once was. You don't even have time to question the veracity of BradBurry's explanation as the same skunk from earlier in the afternoon comes back to your table, a frantic expression in his face. Our sincerest apologies, sir. We have no idea how this man managed to sneak inside. The man looks at the CEO like a criminal fearing for his life. If he didn't look so uncomfortable, you'd almost find it pathetic. Fortunately, though, the dragon appears quite upset at this unexpected development in your outing. He stops himself from unleashing it on the well-meaning waiter. Forget about that. Just make sure this doesn't happen again. Needless to say, the skunk is relieved to hear this. I understand, sir. We will fix this problem right away. No one else will trouble your meal moving forward. Right as he says so, you notice a pair of bulkier weasels approaching the table wearing similar garments to the waiters. Though they wear sunglasses or what appears to be sunglasses, their harsh frowns and cracked fists make their intentions unmistakable. The skunk suddenly turns to face BradBurry. Speaking of, sir, I must kindly ask you to leave. The Saint Bernard hardly reacts to the waiter's request and even pretends to take a sip from his empty glass to really drive the point home that he isn't moving. With a heavy sigh, the skunk motions for the guards and they calmly resume their walk towards the canine, only to abruptly stop at the Drake's command. No, he can stay. You're bewildered by what you just heard. So is the skunk and the two weasels for that matter? Only BradBurry appears to smile at the Drake's orders, almost knowingly so. Are you sure, sir? Always. He can join our table, but he'll pay for his share of the meal on his own. The dog laughs at this notion. My, how rude! And here I thought you were your gentleman. Jasper's frowning intensifies ever so slightly at BradBurry's jokes, but is otherwise unconcerned. Doesn't even flinch as the St. Bernard stands up and walks over to her table, bringing his chair with him. While the two security guards hardly react as they return to their post on the other side of the locale, the skunk appears more unsettled than ever. As you wish, sir. Though I must warn you, the kitchen's only cooking a full-course meal for 2 people now. It'll take a while for us to catch up to... It's alright. Now it's your turn to suddenly speak up, not wanting this conversation to drag on any longer. You can have my half of the meal. I'm not hungry anymore, anyway. Not after everything you've heard, and especially not after seeing BradBurry here of all places. Of all places, sorry. He can have your leftovers if he wishes. He can even choke on them for all you care. Damn! See, this is more like what I had in mind. You could have learned quite a lot from your synthetic friend, Mr. Morgan. So I hear, BradBurry, so I hear. After some more time spent bantering and casting suspicious looks on one another, the waiters return to their table with 2 bowls of what looks like soup and assorted vegetables. You try to listen to the name of the dish for once, but you honestly can't pick up a word of what the skunk is saying. Half the sounds the waiter used seem like they've been made up on the spot. Nonetheless, after yet more needless dish presentations, the men return from whence they came, leaving the 3 of you alone once again. While the 2 men respectfully dig into their meals, you quietly turn to face the Drake sitting opposite you. Okay, but for real, are you sure this is alright? With BradBurry, I mean? Jasper raised an eyebrow at your query. You mean with letting him stay? You silently nod to him. You'd be lying if you said the St. Bernard's presence at the table wasn't making you at least somewhat uncomfortable just by itself. As fun as it would have been to see it happen, you don't just throw out the head of the FBI, android. The repercussions simply aren't worth it. The what now? You have to do a double take upon hearing Jasper's title for the canine at your side. You suddenly turn towards the dog, a mixture of surprise, anger, and fear in your eyes. You didn't tell me you were the head of the FBI yesterday. Then immediately shift your gaze into the Drake once more. And you didn't tell me that either. And neither did Mary, to be fair, but that's a discussion for another day, it would seem. Jasper reacts with nothing but nonchalance at your sudden outburst as per usual, and the same can be said for BradBurry. I thought it already told you, and I thought it irrelevant at the time. If it had nothing to do with why I came to your place after all. Unauthorized, might I add? The St. Bernard turns to look at you upon hearing the dragon's unfriendly remark, a confident smirk on his lips and playful tone in his voice. Goodness, what a man, am I right? I'm surprised you managed to last this long under that gaze of his. As friendly as the dog is trying to be with you, you're smart enough not to let yourself be fooled by this poor facade. His only interests lie with you. He made that abundantly clear yesterday. Instead of giving him what he wants, you take the opportunity to redirect the conversation away from yourself as much as you can. You two don't get along very well, do you? BradBurry raised an eyebrow at your question, almost curious. Really now, does anyone get along with him? Okay, that was a little funny. The annoyed look on Jasper's face most certainly is, at least. Alright, you made yourself clear. All jokes aside, can you really blame him? I mean, I am kind of his boss, and you're not my boss. The Drake's answer is curt and firm. The owners are. I answer to no one else. Certainly not to you. Now, you know that's not true. Sure, you might answer to the owners, but Pandora answers to the government. Been that way for quite a while, actually. After all, someone needs to regularly check that you don't accidentally try to nuke the whole world again. The St. Bernard's words are more than enough to unsettle you in the dragon boat, albeit for clearly different reasons. It's not very hard to imagine just what he's referencing after all. So yes, Mr. Morgan, in a way, you do answer to me, even if I try not to let it weigh on you too much. The Drake remains silent but defiant. He's clearly not in the mood to reply to BradBurry's taunts. Seeing as though he can't elicit a reaction from him, the FBI agent turns to face you instead. I don't think he appreciates it, do you, Isaac? Alright, this is starting to get a little annoying, you reckon? Why are you talking to me like that? Stop it. I'm not your friend, even if you'd like me to be. You expected BradBurry to react harshly to your comments, and yet it doesn't look like he minds your passive aggressiveness all that much for whatever reason. Because he's the FBI director after all. To reach that title, that position, you'll make a lot of enemies more than friends. Fair enough, I was just trying to act friendly, that's all. Someone here needs to balance out all that doom and gloom of Jasper's with some positivity after all, and from the looks of it, it's not going to be you. Well, he certainly nailed that last part, alright? After everything you've learned just now with Jasper, you're in no mood for smiles or jokes. But you can't afford to indulge in these feelings right now. That's exactly what a Saint Bernard wants you to do, if you had to guess. You need to divert his attention away from you as much as you can and hope that'll prevent him from finding out anything that he can use against you. Well, why did you invite your synthetic friend over to lighten the mood then? I'm sure we'd all enjoy the extra pair of eyes on us at all times. You said you were in no mood for jokes. Yet BradBurry pretends to laugh at your comments nonetheless. Ah, you're referring to Harlan. He's currently preoccupied with some ordinary maintenance back at our headquarters. Synthetic bodies are quite a fair bit more durable than organic ones, but they still need a little spot treatment every once in a while. You didn't say agent. Your sudden interruption has BradBurry raising an eyebrow once again, evidently annoyed. Pardon me? You didn't say Agent Harlan, just Harlan. You didn't use agent yesterday either, now that I think about it. You'd be lying if you said you didn't feel at least a little proud of yourself for spotting this little detail, even if you're not sure how much it even matters. Nonetheless, BradBurry clearly hesitated to call Harlan an FBI agent for a reason, and you might as well dig deeper into that now that you have the chance. Ah, that. Like I said yesterday, Harlan's circumstances are a little more complicated than yours. I'm aware. Mary told me all about them just a few hours ago. She talked about your little deal and how she has no idea who Harlan is even supposed to be. Instead of BradBurry's reaction, you're surprised to hear Jasper's quiet cackling coming from the other side of the table. Dr. Shelley telling you things. Calling me shocked. Wow, what a jackass. Now it's your turn to sit silent and dumbfounded as her two companions take the piss on you, those jerks. Finally, after some time spent laughing at your ignorance, BradBurry tries to change the subject. Now, let's not be mean to our synthetic friend, Mr. Morgan. He's not my friend. And just as it first appeared, Jasper's smirk dissipates into an angry frown. It doesn't upset you, of course. You're already well aware of the Drake's feelings towards you. Oh, sorry, didn't read the half. It's just a little scared to see him shift like that all of a sudden, that's all. Of course. How could I forget? Anyways, I take it you're interested in learning more about Harlan. Perhaps it's because you're still a little shaken up, but you can feel all your bravado from murder rapidly disappear. What's the point? You're probably not gonna tell me anything anyway. It'd be weird for you to suddenly open up about this stuff with me when you clearly had no intention to do so with Mary. I have to say, I don't follow your logic in the slightest, or share it for that matter. But you are correct in assuming that this is neither the time nor the place to recount this story. It's full of blood, gore, and all sorts of unsightly details. A tale entirely unsuitable for children or the dinner table. And as much as I'd love to share it with you, I prefer keeping my lunch inside my stomach for the time being. Maybe another time. Odd, aside from BradBurry's vain attempt at humor, the way he explained himself just now felt rather genuine. We're left confused as to whether he's screwing with you or whether you simply can't accept him being truthful for a change. But enough about me. I didn't mean to steal the show from you, gentlemen, I promise. Why don't you tell me more about what you're doing here? It's not every day that Pandora's CEO, one of their finest synthetics, wind up dining at the same locale. Now that's a question, alright? And one you're not sure how to reply to. The owners of Pandora forced us to do this is the correct answer, but again, you're not sure whether being upfront about that with the St. Bernard is the optimal choice. Clearly, the Drake doesn't think so. No reason. I invited the synthetic merely for entertainment's sake. You could say we came here purely on a whim, same as you did. Now that's a nice way of using BradBurry's own lies against him. Now you have to admit, Jasper truly has a way with words. BradBurry seems to think the same. Entertainment, you say? Why, that's not very kind to our dear friend here now, is it? The last thing you want is for him to assume that, for crying out loud, is not my... I know. Goodness, you can be so one-note sometimes. I'm just saying, behaving so rudely in front of your guests isn't going to do you any... Don't even try. Your response is swift and cold, enough so to catch even the canine off guard. You don't get to make jokes like that, not after what you did yesterday. After giving you a strange look, the St. Bernard erupts in an endless cackle. My, I had no idea the atmosphere around this table was so tense. Are these knives even necessary at this point? Whatever the two of you were discussing must have been really spicy. Again, you hesitate to look the man in the eyes, feeling almost ashamed of your entire earlier discussion with that dragon. We weren't discussing anything. I was just telling him more about my past and... Please. Jasper immediately interrupts you, a stern look in his eyes. Don't insult our guest with your poor acting, android. He's already aware of our past conversation. He would have approached if he hadn't heard enough already. That sounds just about like what you'd expect, indeed. You'd already figured out BradBurry hadn't come to the table to have a hearty laugh at your expense. You just hoped you'd be able to delay this moment for as long as possible and maybe even evade it. Unfortunately, that doesn't appear to be possible any longer. Even BradBurry seems surprised that you tried denying the truth for this long. I mean, let's be real. I did also comment on the way you ended that big speech of yours, if you haven't forgotten. If they're trying to make you feel stupid right now, they're most definitely succeeding. So, you've heard everything Jasper said. That I did. What of it? You tried to organize your thoughts once more, not wanting to be taken by surprise by the canine again. If you have no choice but to have this talk right now, you might as well go out swinging from the get-go. Well, for starters, you can start by explaining why you didn't tell me any of this when we first met yesterday. Well, for starters, I had no idea of how much time I'd get to spend with you, so I had to choose my words carefully. Plus, like Jasper already said, I too thought you were already aware of most of this. He makes as if to continue with his spiel, but the Drake is quick to interrupt him, seemingly curious. While we're on the topic, what did you two discuss yesterday exactly? I thought you only went to the Andrews' apartment to ask questions regarding an incident that occurred the night prior. BradBurry raises an eyebrow at his queries, seemingly unwilling to reply truthfully. Oh, we didn't do much. He wanted to know how much I knew about the synthetic project for whatever reason. Again, you stunned both your companions with the swiftness of her response. It caught me in how little time I had to choose to become one and wanted to know how I felt about the whole ordeal. Of course, that's only half the truth, if it could even be considered truth at all. You could go ahead and tell Jasper the full extent of BradBurry's actions yesterday and the depth of his suspicions, but you don't feel comfortable doing so just yet. For one, it's Jasper you're talking about, not Mary. You have no idea how he'd react, but you're pretty sure the consequences wouldn't be good for her either way. More importantly, keeping your options open is of the utmost importance. On the off chance BradBurry is right about Pandora hiding something, you don't want to make enemies of either them or the FBI until you know the full story. Well, make enemies of them more than they already are anyway. Luckily, Jasper is completely clueless as to your deception, or so it would seem. Is that so? Then pray tell, BradBurry, was it truly necessary to intrude on private property only to ask a few questions? Oh, you know me, Mr. Morgan, knowing involves a great deal of my job, and knowing everything about your latest invention, well, even more so. Besides, I could also ask you if it was truly necessary to bring Isaac all the way here only to spoon-feed him such trivial information on your company. The dragon appears to be quite troubled by the dog's choice of words for whatever reason, but he shows no discernible reaction other than that for the moment. While you wonder what about that, the waiters finally bring in 2 prime cuts of steak that for a change look mostly edible. Nobody bothers to listen to the dish's introduction, nobody even tries to eat it. You're not the only one fully invested in this conversation anymore. I'd hardly call anything I shared with the android trivial, BradBurry. I agree, trivial isn't the right word for it. Frightening is way more accurate. At least frightening to you, neither the Drake nor the dog appeared concerned by your same fears at all. Instead, look at you from top to bottom with what appeared to be annoyance and curiosity, respectively. Like you're the weird one here, not them. It's actually kind of insulting. Why aren't you bothered by all this? Why am I the only one aware of Pandora owning everything and everyone? Shouldn't you be the one having this kind of reaction right now, knowing all this? Once again, the canine hardly budges before the weight of your accusations unless you count the know-it-all smirk plastered on his face. Now, let's not jump to conclusions. I never said Pandora owning everything isn't a big deal. It's just nowhere near as crazy as you make it sound to be. You make as if to harshly reply, but stop yourself at the last moment. You've already done it before, Jasper, earlier in the conversation, and it only served to make you look dumber in front of the CEO. It's become amply evident by now how unpopular your opinions on the matter are. You thought of all people, BradBurry would have similar feelings to you, but that doesn't appear to be the case. In truth, everything is as Jasper said. Pandora is the only force in the world economy at this point in time, and they have been for the longest of times as well. In fact, they become so prominent at this point and their influence so vast and simply impossible to imagine a world without them. At least I imagine it would be for most people if only they knew all these things. And none of this concerns you? It's upsetting. You don't know why, but this conversation, all this new information is deeply unsettling, and seeing the canine recite it all as though it were a school essay only doubles the discomfort. Of course it concerns me. I'm FBI, remember? Everything Pandora does concerns me. You know what I'm trying to say, and so do I. And you're surprised to hear Jasper's voice add itself to the mix, seeming just as, if not even more annoyed than yours. His hands tighten into fists beneath the table as he turns to sternly address the FBI agent. We've wasted enough time with frivolities by now. Get to the damn point already! Even faced with Jasper's BradBurry's voice and attitude remain as unfazed as ever. The point? Jasper's fist collided with the table in a loud, undignified fashion. Just admit it, BradBurry, you didn't come all this way to have a pleasant conversation. Sorry, I burped. Conversation or whatever nonsense you were peddling to us at the start. I know how much you despise Pandora, how much you wish us all gone, how much you want to see us fail. And judging by his attitude, so does the android. That you do. The St. Bernard's feelings towards the Drake and his company are mystery to no one at this point. You hardly have time to ponder about that further, however, as Jasper's tone becomes ever angrier and his voice ever louder. You just came here to gloat, didn't you? To try and use my discussion with the android as a tool to deviate him against his makers, isn't that right? Well, go on. Make your little speech about how we're the worst thing to ever happen to the world. It's the least you can do after wasting all my precious time. I'm listening. Silence. Silence once again. The room is filled with nothing but silence. Perhaps to the dragon this is a victory sign that these accusations have found their mark, like arrows perfectly striking their target. But you know better. You've seen that look on the canine's face more than enough already and felt the weight of his stare more often than you would have liked. He is not affected, he's not bothered, and he's only getting started. You seem to have greatly mistaken me. Just where did you get this impression of me, if I might ask? You knew something was coming? Some sort of response that would have shut both you and your companion down like smartphones without battery. But you were not expecting that. But you... Come on now. I didn't say everything is as Jasper said for show, you know? I agree with his belief that no one would bat an eye if only they knew how much they depended on Pandora for their livelihood. You need only look at those waiters over there. They can clearly tell that we're discussing strange things over here, yet they can make no effort to try and listen in. Out of all the things BradBurry could have done, agreeing with Jasper on all his points was probably the bottom of the list. His fake friendliness from earlier has mellowed out considerably all of a sudden, and now he speaks with a calm yet serious tone that almost feels genuine. It's stunning, to say the least. That's only because those people are just trying to do their job, though, isn't it? Precisely, much the same as everyone else is simply trying to live their life. You're immediately reminded of something the Drake said much earlier in the conversation. Who has the time or will to look any of this up? Bingo. It's quite disconcerting. You could be focusing on a number of different things right now, half of which are related to the St. Bernard's sudden change of attitude. Yet all that concerns you right now are all these new bits of information in that unexpected way the dog is presenting them to you. Evidently, you are not alone in your disbelief. And you really have no qualms with everyone depending on Pandora either. Sounds quite hard to believe, given your role is to keep us in line. More or less. I mean, you said it best yourself, didn't you? You provide food for the hungry, medical care for the needy, and well, a whole slew of other things. I assume you know what I mean. The good Pandora does to this world simply by existing cannot be overstated. Maybe this is what's really bothering you about this entire discussion. How quickly one revelation leads into the next, how seamlessly the logic in the canine's arguments flows, how easily you can bring yourself to believe these assertions. And most importantly, how much sense it's all starting to make the more you hear about all this. But still, doesn't it bother you in the least that a single company's responsible for all this? Why should it? How is that any different from a bunch of different companies providing all the goods and services in the economy instead? In the end, most people don't mind who they give their money to, so long as they get what they're seeking in return. Damn, that hit the mark. When all you care about is leading a quiet, fulfilling life, the name of the company you need to thank for this opportunity is wholly unimportant. Some would even argue that concentrating all the power in one business's hands prevents futile power struggles between corporate overlords and increases efficiency. I guess that removes the possible path of a Cyberpunk 2077 kind of thing, where multiple corporations are at war. So long as the company doesn't get lazy anyway. It's so quick you almost fail to notice it. You glint of BradBurry's smirk, which resurfaced for just a moment underneath his otherwise normal-looking smile. It tells you that he's still hiding something, despite how candid he appears. You still haven't answered your own question, BradBurry. You look straight into the canine's eyes, a divine glint in your own. Yes, how is that any different from a bunch of different companies doing the same thing instead? In this scenario, one company failing wouldn't hurt the system too much. The others would be able to take over, and balance would be restored. But in our reality, if Pandora were to fall, everything and everyone who depend on them would collapse as well. How come you didn't realize this sooner? Why did putting into words what troubled you with this revelation take this long to accomplish? And why are BradBurry's lips curling once more to that malevolent, all-knowing smirk? See, this is what I was talking about yesterday. You truly are so much smarter than you give yourself credit for, Isaac. Indeed. Imagine what would happen should Pandora suddenly leave the scene, shall we say. You need a little time to articulate your thoughts on the matter to truly understand the consequences such a catastrophe would bring. You haven't studied much economics at school, but you're thankful what little you did. You'd be totally clueless right now otherwise. Well, with no funding and no incoming orders, most businesses would stop operating. And with no goods, no services, no jobs, the entire world economy would freeze overnight. BradBurry appears mostly satisfied with your answer. A very generic description, but mostly correct. Everyone would panic, the institutions would stop working, and the world would fall into chaos. Truly, it'd be hell on earth, like we've never seen before. His musings are suddenly interrupted by a familiar slam on the table coming from Jasper's side of the table. He hasn't looked his way at all since BradBurry began his explanation, but his anger has clearly risen in the time since. Oh, give me a break. They're talking of the apocalypse as though it's right next door. There has never been a crisis of this magnitude in history, even before Pandora took control, and especially after we did. You're just trying to scare that android into thinking things your way. I'm doing no such thing, I assure you. Isaac figured all this out on his own, with no meddling on my behalf. That's gaslighting. That is manipulation of an idea. You want to make the person you want to, get on your side is to think that the idea came from him or her, not from you. You're just a person who said some things that didn't majorly influence their thought. It's like tipping the scales. But a little bit of tipping is what counts. Besides, the only reason why nothing of this magnitude has ever happened before is because all the necessary conditions weren't in place yet. Did I read this? Okay, yeah. The conditions, the dog smile returns as he returns to face you once again. Before Pandora took over, when a sector or country would collapse, other businesses or countries would pick up the slack. Because power was divided among many, so was the risk, and systemic problems were much easier to sort out. But now all that power, all that risk is focused in the hands of a select group of people. And it falls to them to ensure that the entire system, the entire world, keeps running as usual. The whole world goes quiet for a moment as reality begins to settle in your mind. So that's it, huh? That's the state of the world we're living in. It's awful. There's no other way to describe it. In less than an hour, everything you thought you knew your entire life was turned on its head, and all you're left with in its passing is fear and anger. But what truly bothers you is that you're alone, that you're the only one who laments the loss of the simplicity and fairness your old reality seemed to have. For the first time in a long while, you truly feel like a fool. Pandora, I am aware of the responsibility I bear. Jasper makes as if to speak up once again, looking more stalwart and composed than ever, seemingly unfazed by everything the canine said. His gaze is as stern as his grandfather's as he crosses his arms, looking more and more like one of the busts you saw earlier in the meeting room at Pandora's HQ. My job is as you described it, to keep the entire world running, to coordinate every inch of this business and steer it towards our desired outcome. To preserve this world and all the people in it, to keep things running smoothly as they always have. To keep people happy as they deserve to be. You don't know what to think at this point, honestly. As much as the Drake's trying to cover up for the flaws BradBurry highlighted earlier, he fails to address any of the points that make you upset. It feels like grandstanding. Pointless, uninspiring, disingenuous grandstanding. And clearly you're not the only one to think so. Bravo! What a wonderful speech. Pray tell, was this always the case, or did your motivations change across the ages? I always wondered if the people who developed Kronos were also inspired by such selfless altruism. And here we are again, talking about the same topics as always. Disgusting. Kronos was a mistake, a foolish attempt to innovate where there was no need, to fix what was never broken. That abomination of science taught us a valuable lesson, a lesson I intend to treasure for as long as I'm CEO. As long as I'm in charge of this company, the world would not fear another monster like him ever again. If everything the dog and dragon brought up so far felt like getting stabbed with a knife, his final argument was them twisting it in the wound. Especially that abomination of science part. A title you recall Jasper using not even that long ago. A title he used to describe you. And from there, it's not that difficult to put two and two together and realize this entire speech of his was all about you. And though all you can think of right now is how much you wish you could cry, the Saint Bernard can do nothing but laugh. As long as you're in charge, you say? Don't get me wrong, Mr. Morgan. I hold you in the highest regards. I am in awe of your dedication, of your commitment to your duties. But we both know not everyone in this world is like you, don't we? Not everyone is so outstanding. Not everyone is so well-meaning. What do you say would happen if there was anyone else in your position right now, like Isaac here, or Dr. Shelley, or any of your subordinates for that matter? Would they share your same sense of responsibility, your same level of care in everything you do? Or would they disregard these things and do things their own way, the wrong way, I should say? BradBurry's malicious words are like a spell, chilling the air around the table like an icy wind, only seldomly interrupted by the dog's own laughter. In the end, it won't be a crisis to end Pandora, it won't be inflation or a market crash, a natural disaster or even a war. All you need is the wrong man in the right place at the right time, and everything and everyone will vanish in the blink of an eye. All we can ponder really is when it'll happen. The sudden scraping of Jasper's chair against the floor as he quickly stands up frightens you more than a jump scare in a horror movie. Only a single vein is visible on his forehead as he turns to address you, his stern tone only barely concealing the sheer volume of fury he's hiding beneath. We're done here. I'm sorry? I said we're done here. The dragon is oblivious to you, still needing time to process everything that just occurred, and for just a moment, so are you. Stand up. He does right away, unquestioningly, like an automaton heeding its master's command. All you can think about is a quickened beat of your synthetic heart in your chest. When the Drake turns and begins to head towards the exit, he doesn't need to shout for you to follow suit right away. You hear the canine's playful voice echo behind you as you leave. You're not even going to wait for the desserts to come out? They smell... I don't care. The dragon's response is quick and to the point. I'm not hungry anymore. As you pass by the head waiter on the way to the door, Jasper swiftly pulls you in by means of his necktie. You saw nothing. You heard nothing. Keep it that way. He's almost choking the old skunk by how hard he's tugging on his tie, yet the man tries his best to appear unbothered nonetheless. His best, unfortunately, is not nearly enough. Indeed, sir, nothing out of the ordinary happened, and no one will ever suspect otherwise. His frantic tone is all the confirmation the Drake needs, and the CEO swiftly releases him. The waiter needs some time to catch his breath as the Drake heads towards the elevator, his every step echoing the room behind him. As you rush to follow him, you turn your gaze a final time towards the concerned waiters who have appeared on the scene to look after their shocked colleague. Thank you for the meal. Have a good day. Though your mind is completely fried at present, it seems you haven't forgotten how to be polite. If nothing else, though your thoughtfulness rings hollow now more than ever. Hollow indeed. Much like the waiter's own voices, ever silent and unresponsive as you hastily exit the restaurant. You exit the building with fevered steps and find yourself once again in the busy, colorful streets down below. Jasper didn't wait for you in the elevator like you thought he would, instead preferring to take the long and laborious way down, also known as the stairs by most. He probably needed a moment or two by himself, if you reason, and truth be told, so do you. God, what is wrong with my life all of a sudden? Where did all these weirdos even come from? Between Jasper's, BradBurry's, and even Mary's bullshit, I'm starting to lose my fucking mind. This is definitely not what you signed up for when you chose to become synthetic, that's for sure, and yet it doesn't seem as though this madness is going to end anytime soon. What the hell is even going on anymore? All that talk about Pandora owning everything, how it's too big to fail, and the consequences should it fall have completely short-circuited your brain. Alright, that pun was unintentional. Still, what are you meant to make any of this? Why did BradBurry steer the conversation in that direction? Why does it feel like he wanted you to realize what you did? And why did Jasper even... There you are. The familiar Drake suddenly walks up to you from behind and an annoyed look on his snout. Why didn't you wait for me in front of the exit? What do you mean, why didn't I wait? What do you think I've been... Only now do you realize you've actually walked a fair distance away from where you thought you were while lost in your own thoughts. You almost turned a corner too. It's a miracle Jasper even managed to catch up to you at all, judging from his worked up breathing. Oh, never mind. Sorry about that. The dragon doesn't accept your apology outright and instead allows himself a breather by sitting down on a nearby bench, clearly exhausted. You half expect him to start tearing on you at any moment now, but instead he motions for you to join him with a wide movement of his hand. Sit. Sorry, I did fail to read that as fast. His gaze appears stern, yet it could be he's just tired, and it's hard to tell when it comes to this guy. You hesitantly rest your behind on the steely seat beneath you, leaving as much room between you and the Drake as you can. This is awkward. Jasper appears lost in contemplation, or maybe he passed away with his eyes open. Who knows? You're not sure whether you're supposed to join him in quiet meditation or try and break the silence somehow, but both options seem wrong to you, and yet... I needed some time to myself. Unexpectedly, the dragon speaks up all of a sudden. That's why I took the stairs. I assumed you'd have wanted to stay away from me while in such a state. Aw, I like this guy. Alright, I'm gonna end this video right here. It's a little bit long. Yeah, but hopefully you liked it. Comment down below, subscribe, you know the drill. And I'll be seeing you in a different video, of course. See ya. Good luck whatever you're doing. Bye.